own little Miss Marvel.
Welcome back, Screen Crush. I'm Ryan Airy, and this is all of the Easter eggs, references, and little things that you might have missed in the finale of Ms. Marvel. And don't worry, we're also going to talk about those two ending scenes, both the confirmation of this and explaining how Carol Danvers appeared in Kamala's bedroom at the end of the episode. Plus, I have a theory on who the big bad villain could be that this is all leading up to. But first, Easter eggs. The episode carries a lot of symbolic meaning regarding the way law enforcement, particularly federal law enforcement, react toward Muslims and other people of color. And some of the meaning is not so symbolic.
This is what happens when the wrong people get powers.
Now, when I heard this, I assumed she meant kids, but it still needed clarification that she wasn't being racist.
The wrong people. Kids.
Sure you did. Then we go to Bruno helping Kamran escape on a train. His powers in the comics are bioluminescence, and here they're very similar. He has the same light manifestation powers as Kamala, although his are colored like the portal of the Jinn, and generally are used more offensively, more jagged, more angry. This reflects his upbringing as a clandestine, as someone who was always hunted and persecuted. And of course, his energy is colored slightly differently than Kamala's, so we can tell them apart in battle. And his are green, I think? Maybe red? I'm colorblind, I don't know.
Me too, buddy.
After the Marvel Studios credits, we focus on the Statue of Liberty, a symbol of freedom and opportunity for immigrants like Kamala's family. Her mother is sharing the gifts they brought home from Pakistan, as Kamala has her own version of a coming out meeting.
Nightlight.
Oh my god!
And Tyesha's response,
Are your powers limitless, or do you have to recharge?
is a nod to another light-based hero, Green Lantern, who has to recharge his lantern once every 24 hours. It's a stupid name for the character though, because the guy wears red. Oh. The opening credits are a song called Captain Space by Janubi Gargash. The title is a nod to Kamala's future and the Captain Marvel post-credits scene. Now, even though her family finds out her identity, like they do in the comics, I am really glad that Kamala is able to keep her secret identity. Secret identities are important, damn it. They allow the heroes to be ordinary people and not just celebrities with powers. It's what separates the Justice League from the boys.
And I can do whatever the fuck I want.
I thought the conversation with her parents about dangerous situations was very sweet. Her dad is worried that she'll be hurt, but her mom finally says,
And we trust her, right?
which brings the series back full circle, back to when Kamala wanted to pretend to be a superhero at AvengerCon.
No, I don't trust you.
Of course she does.
No, I don't.
Now, we talked a lot about that in our other Ms. Marvel videos, and our Bangle Explained video, and our trailer breakdown, and we have lots of Thor videos coming out every single day.
Wow, Preston, how do you organize all these videos?
Well, Doug, you know what? It is hard to stay organized. We've got countless shows to watch, scripts to write, videos to edit, plus I have to keep up with all the other channels on YouTube. I used to have a hard time keeping it all organized, but then I started using Notion. They're the sponsor of this video. Notion is by far the easiest, most intuitive organization software I have ever used. You can use it just for yourself, like I do, or you can manage the workflow of an entire team or group. Notion just helps me stay organized. Just look how easy this is. On the very first page, there is a learning to-do list and embedded YouTube tutorials that are simple and easy to understand. So within minutes, I knew exactly how to use this software. Like for instance, a big part of my job is rereading comics and books. So I used a reading list template where I could link the books to my Marvel Unlimited account. I also created a watch list so I could see what my favorite channels are working on, and eventually I can write scripts on this platform as well. It's also really easy to customize your taskbar because this software is so intuitive and versatile. You can use it to create blog posts, websites, databases, plan workflows, tables, and I'm a sucker for the rush I get when I tick something off my to-do list. So if you need some organization in your life, you have to try out Notion. Click the link in the description to sign up for Notion for free. Back to the Easter eggs. Then we got the Ms. Marvel title cards, which as always guide us through what happens in the episode. We see police tape, blueprints like the ones in Bruno's apartment, her endgame cutouts featuring Carol Danvers here. This one is a shirt that says established 2014, the year the character was first published, the circle cue, the side of a school bus like we see in the climax, a cast like the one Bruno is wearing after the finale, some needlepoint of her name, then on the side of a cop car, signs at a train station because Bruno and Kamran start off on a train, then a chalkboard like the plan to help Kamran escape, street graffiti painted as interpretations of Carol Danvers' characters, and finally, her name in lights, showing that she's about to come into her own superhero identity. Also, I want to clarify a few mistakes that we made in the last episode where we were talking about the Ms. Marvel translations. There are multiple languages translating to Ms. Marvel, and we had the script written correctly, but they were messed up in the edit. We're really sorry about that. In these previous titles, we had Ms. Marvel translated in Urdu, which also looks similar to Sindhi here, Hindi, Punjabi, Gujarati, Tamil, Bengali/Bangla, and Telugu. Shout out to New Rockstars Eric Voss for also noticing that the Hindi and Urdu languages are split by the partition line. Another cool Easter egg that we noticed is that in this title card we can see Kareem as a red dagger looking like he usually does in the comics, but we can also see Kamala behind him. She's dressed the same as she is in the comics, with her head wrapped and wearing a salwar kameez, from when she went to Pakistan and met the Red Daggers for the first time. Now, we've talked about all the Captain Marvel Easter eggs in Kamala's room before, like how the posters are actual comic book art, but I believe this is the first time we've actually seen the lock screen on her computer with the Captain Marvel logo. And by the way, at the end when Carol shows up in this room, for just a second she had to have thought, oh my god, I've been kidnapped by some weirdo superfan. So then her mom brings Kamala a present in the same milk toffee boxes that were placed all over Nani's place.
Why are there so many toffee boxes everywhere?
And her grandmother actually originally sent her the bangle in a box just like this. I thought this was a really sweet moment that brought the series full circle. Her mother made her a cosplay costume in the first episode, trying to force a different superhero identity onto her. But now she truly understands her daughter and has made her something that's a blend of the modern and the traditional. This suit is a combination of Kamala's two worlds. Out on the street we see the extra spicy hero guy from Eid.
Look, I'm the real deal, you know what I mean? All right? The Giro King, not like some wannabe.
As the DODC storms into the mosque, once again showing disrespect by not removing their shoes. Sheikh Abdullah gives Bruno and Kamran disguises, hats, which fits in with the other MCU heroes who disguise themselves with ball caps.
We look like ourselves at a baseball game.
And these hats also translate to forbidden and permissible, a really fun disguise for anyone who's trying to avoid law enforcement. Nothing to see here. I am forbidden for you to investigate, and I am permissible. By the way, I quickly want to give a shout out to one of our editor researchers, Srinidhi Rao, who has been instrumental in our Ms. Marvel breakdowns, and you should all follow her on Instagram. And also our other video team members, you should follow them as well. Then Kamala finally wears her full costume, posing in front of the mirror. Now you remember back in episode 1, she did a similar pose in her Carol Danvers cosplay, but she felt self-conscious because the top was too short. This costume is modeled after the traditional salwar kameez, so it covers up her midsection. So I really liked that the Department of Damage Control was cast as these kind of bumbling, but overall I guess well-meaning villains. It shows how bureaucracy and ambition can change what an organization was intended to be. Like the DODC should be helping kids with powers, but instead certain agents are treating them like criminals. Remember, Tony Stark helped to found this organization to clean up after superhero battles, like we saw in Spider-Man Homecoming. But now, post-Sokovia Accords, they've kind of become the de facto law enforcement of the enhanced individual. If only there was some kind of school to train kids with powers. Now here's a pet peeve of mine in TV shows. Kamala meets the boys. It's broad daylight. It's not magic hour. There's no sunset. Next scene, pitch black. Look, I know that there was probably a scene cut from there, or maybe to have the budget to try to make it look like it was magic hour on the day of filming, but come on, give me like a cutaway to someone else, like her mom looking at a photo and being like, I'm worried, and then we can go to a beam pitch black. It's too abrupt of a shift. Anyways, they meet at the school, and I know this show was filmed like a long time ago, but I think I speak for all of us when I say no more gunfights in schools, please. Set your climactic battles somewhere else. So the gang all converges, including Zoe, because
the theater has good lighting.
I love how Zoe's social media has been a running gag this whole season. Popcorn. They make a plan on a chalkboard, another full circle callback to episode 1. Except then, Kamala was planning out how to pretend to be a superhero without getting into trouble, and now she's planning how to use her superhero abilities to keep Kamran out of trouble. And frankly, all of her daydreaming about superheroes in class has finally paid off, just like it did for me. You hear that, Mrs. Maggard? You didn't have to take away my copy of X-Force 19. It was the end of the Executioner song, and now I'll never know how it ends.
I know how it ends.
Well, spoilers, dude, don't tell me. And you know what I love about the MCU? It's these little connections, like the DODC's repulsor weapons using the exact same charging sound as Tony's repulsor rays. Now I know that Tony would have given them a form of this tech, but it's just nice how it all fits. In fact, Hydra's weapons in First Avenger made the same sound.
I am on a tight schedule.
Because maybe Howard Stark analyzed that tech and he had blueprints for them laying around. But Tony was able to figure out how to reinvent it powered by his arc reactor. You can also see this in the drones from episode 2 and episode 5. The channel New Rockstars pointed out that they're modeled after the Stark Edith drones from Far From Home, and that Damage Control sees these drones in No Way Home. So it could be that Tony Stark originally protected this Edith technology from outside agencies like Damage Control because he didn't want the government to have access to his tech. But following Tony's death, Damage Control is overreaching and seizing using more Stark tech for themselves. They might even be an antagonist in the Armor Wars TV show, where Rhodey will try to keep Tony's tech out of villainous hands, like the story in the comics. Agent Deaver talks to Stewie from Succession, aka Agent Cleary from No Way Home, and he tries to order her to stand down, showing that not all cops are bad, there's just a few bad apples. Zoe uses social media to tell people what's going on, again, a little too real for me, and the comments read things like, "Avengers come help," and "I'm on I-78, which is the highway that runs to New Jersey," and "popcorn video," you know, like Zoe's video.
That video that you made about low-calorie popcorn.
When the kids split off, the cops say, "What, he can multiply now?" Which is a nod to the mutant multiple man from the comics. I like how this episode paid off smaller parts of other episodes, like Bruno showing off his wedding dance moves and Kamran finally getting his name right.
Thanks, Bruno.
We also get recurring songs from the series like Coco Carina, the Sweatshop Boys, and Hadipa on the Zuzu. When Kamran and Kamala split off, they go to the bathroom when Kamran figures out that his mom is dead. It's appropriate that they're able to have this moment in the school bathroom, because bathrooms are one of the few places in schools where kids have privacy from teachers. They're not constantly monitored by authority figures, so it allows for two young people to, say, have a conversation about tampons, or to be dangerous and smoke marijuana like a cigarette. Kamran comes close to doing a heel turn when he finds out the truth about his mom, because remember, he's been persecuted and hunted for his entire life just because of who he is. I think the show is trying to draw a parallel between him and a lot of disaffected Middle Eastern young men. These are the boys who are targeted by groups like ISIS, who want to take advantage of their anger and use them to create violence. We see Kamran come near to this point, lashing out in anger at the DODC, but Kamala pulls him back. Outside, the DODC pulls out a large repulsor cannon, much like the Stark tech the Army used against the Hulk in The Incredible Hulk. And the targeting view is also very similar to Tony's internal display that we see in all the other Marvel movies. And then, finally, Kamala gets to say her catchphrase. And she uses her powers to create a big tall body for herself so she can smash things. And I am so glad. In the comics, she has the power to stretch and transform herself, which showed her creativity and was a metaphor for puberty and how she was finding her own identity. I never really liked the change to her having light powers because, I don't know, they're kind of generic. So I'm really glad the show found a way to still have her use her more iconic powers from the comics. Comics are great. Read more comics. And when she stops the car from hitting the crowd, I liked this detail of Sheik Abdullah checking himself for cuts. Now that is dedication to the craft.
Acting!
Genius!
Then Kamran goes ballistic, almost becoming a supervillain like his comic book counterpart. If Kamala hadn't talked to him here, then he would have been arrested, imprisoned, and likely would have been radicalized by the other villains in the raft. But instead, she is there for him.
They're never going to accept me, and they'll never accept you either!
Now he's talking about both their powers and how they will never be accepted in traditional Western society. And then Kamala gives him a lesson that is the heart of her journey at the show.
There is no normal. There's just us and what we do with what we've been given.
You hear that, everyone? There is no normal. This lesson doesn't just apply to Muslim kids in a majority white city. It applies to every kid in every high school who feels like they're the weird one, that they're out of place, or that they need to act a certain way to be popular. This lesson also applies to our fellow geeks like Kamala. What makes geek culture great is that we wholeheartedly embrace the things we love. You may not be into anime or DC or The Last Jedi, but there is no right way to be a fan. We all are who we are. I really like this show, at least when it's in New Jersey. The music playing while Kamran goes ballistic is the same that played when Tyesha and Hassan are escaping their village during the partition. And when Kamala gives words of advice to Kamran and helps him escape, it's the same score as when she helps Sana find her way to her dad. Another neat callback to past episodes. Then Kamala's community rallies to protect her, along with the local police force, against the big government DODC. I am a sucker for scenes like this when ordinary folks become heroes too. And then we go to the social media response to the fight. The first guy is called Master Paul 616, a nod to Universe 616, the designation given to the main comics universe, and apparently now to the MCU.
We've designated yours 616.
Oh, you guys sure must know a lot about the multiverse if you got someone going around naming realities.
And people have also used enhancements to give themselves glowing fists like Kamala's powers. And I thought this was cute.
She looks so familiar.
That is G. Willow Wilson, the creator of Ms. Marvel and a writer on the show. And this person commenting on her video is your mom. There's also a nice little nod here when Nakia and Zoe bond, just like they overcome their differences in the comics and become close friends. And of course we have Ice Cream Pizza Kid, who also, didn't mention this in the past Easter egg video we did, he was the mosque shoe thief. And he brings back the ice cream pizza meme.
Celebrate our own superhero. Free ice cream pizza. After Salah, of course. Yeah.
Kamala takes another look in the mirror, striking a superhero pose before having a heart-to-heart with her dad about her identity. He tells her the origin of her name, which is like it is in the comics, as we've pointed out in the past.
And always have been our own little Miss Marvel.
He also looks at her and says,
Magic.
which could be a fun nod to the actor who did the official Hindi voice dub for Doctor Strange.
मेरा नाम है Dr. Stephen Strange और मैं तुमसे कुछ पूछना चाहता हूँ.
I love how she gets both sides of her hero identity from her parents. Her mother gave her the official costume, and her dad gave her official name. It's really cute. And then we get a montage of the characters living their lives, with Bruno getting ready to go to Caltech, dropping off a mysterious letter, Nakia fixing the mosque, and Kamran joining the Red Daggers. And then the show ends with the recreation of the famous lamppost shot from the comics. Now this is iconic for this character because she's a Jersey girl who dreams of living a superhero life in the big city. And then we cut to 1 week later. It's a little weird that Bruno just left a letter, presumably for Kamala, that seemed like he was telling her, here's everything I wish I could say, and I really have a crush on you and all that, and they don't acknowledge it, but whatever.
So I went back and looked at your genetic makeup again?
Bruno, you know you can call me when you're bored.
No.
I mean, they probably added this scene later, but I'm really cool with it because we have a tasty, tasty, tasty confirmation of our first MCU 616 born mutant. Give it to me, Bruno.
There's something different in your genes.
What, Bruno? What is it? What's different?
Tell us. We must know.
Like a mutation.
Yes! And listen here. That is the old school X-Men theme from the animated series that we heard when Xavier entered the scene in the Multiverse of Madness. I hope this means they use that score in the movies. Now, this is very cool for a few reasons. One, obviously, mutants are about to start popping up all over the MCU, and Damage Control's lives are going to be hell. But in the comics, Kamala was an Inhuman. Now, during this time in Marvel Comics, the corporate bosses made a rule that the writers could no longer introduce new mutants into the comics.
Why not?
Well, because at the time, Fox owned the rights to the X-Men films. So the idea was, why give a competing company a new IP that they can make a movie with? Instead, all new characters were supposed to now be Inhumans. This is why the Inhumans were pushed so heavily in the show Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and how we got books like the Uncanny Inhumans. I don't know if there were ever plans to make Kamala a mutant instead of an Inhuman, but this is still like a nice symbolic reversal of that policy. And then, Nakia says,
"Get in, losers, we're getting shawarma."
Which is a mashup of two great movie lines.
Get in, loser, we're going shopping.
You ever tried shawarma?
Because, of course, heroes always get shawarma after saving the world. And the credits, as always, are filled with panels from the comics, and we have the Trusted Bro moving van from the Tracksuit Mafia and Hawkeye.
Kate Bishop is guy, bro.
They also mix in the credits from the Karachi episodes, showing that Kamala has finally found a way to blend her two cultures together. And then we get the post-credit scene, which ties directly into Shang-Chi and the Legends of the Ten Rings, and directly ties into the sequel to Captain Marvel, The Marvels. It starts when Kamala lies down on her bed, reminiscent of Peter Parker in the post-credit scene of Civil War.
Peter Parker? Who's that?
No idea. Then the bangle starts to beep. This is very much like the beacon the Ten Rings set off at the end of Shang-Chi.
What is it?
A beacon.
They're sending a message.
Now remember, in that scene they say that the rings activated this beacon as soon as Shang used them, and they had no idea who they were calling. Bruce, Wong, and Carol all confirmed that the rings were not like any tech they had ever seen before. But we do have some clues now. We saw the bangle came from a temple of the Ten Rings, and we heard that there were 2 bangles.
He said we would need 2.
The other bangle was necessary to transport the clandestines back to their home dimension. Now, we've thrown out a lot of theories about the bangle. Are they the quantum bands, the nega bands? But one of the most likely theories is that the 10 rings are the other bangle. And the reason Shang was able to use them is because his mother was from Ta Lo. It could be that the rings and the bangle are from the same dimension as the Ta Lo Guardians, and the beacon summoned a threat from that dimension. Now, that's one theory. It's pretty good. But there's another clue that ties in even better to Captain Marvel lore. So look at what happens here. Kamala switches places with Carol Danvers. Something like this happens in the comics with the original Captain Marvel, Mar-Vell. Most of the time, he was stuck in another dimension that's made of antimatter called the Negative Zone. But whenever an Earthman named Rick Jones would hold these 2 negabands together, he and Mar-Vell would switch places, and Captain Marvel would arrive to save the day. I'm thinking that these bands and the 10 rings came from the Negative Zone, and that the other bangle is still there in the Negative Zone. I think the Marvels will begin with Carol investigating this beacon from the Shang-Chi post-credits scene, and this investigation will take her into the Negative Zone where she will find the other bangle. She'll touch it, and that will make her switch places with Kamala, and then Kamala will suddenly appear in that movie. Back on Earth, Carol's going to have to find her way out of Jersey City and back into the Negative Zone, and she will need the help of SWORD, the space defense agency that we saw in WandaVision. And remember, that show ended with Monica Rambeau being recruited by the Skrulls and SWORD to go into space.
I was sent by an old friend of your mother's.
He heard you've been grounded.
Now, Monica knew Carol when she was a kid. She even designed her suit for her. But WandaVision implied that she wasn't on the best terms with Auntie Carol.
Nobody else came close.
Well, I'd argue that Captain Marvel came close.
Her powers came from an Infinity Stone too, right?
Maybe she resents Carol for not helping her mom Maria when she had cancer. But now, Carol and Monica will have to team up to go to the negative zone, find Kamala, and face the threat that's there. A threat so immense that it could destroy entire galaxies across the universe.
What sort of threat could this be?
The villain, Annihilus. Now, normally he is a villain of the Fantastic Four, but now the rights to all of those characters are back with Marvel, so he could be a villain in the MCU. Annihilus is a big bug guy who uses a control rod to command an infinite number of bug soldiers, and in the comics, he nearly destroyed the entire universe during the Annihilation event. So this could be a tease about the next big comic book crossover villain in the MCU, the Annihilation event. The 10 rings and the bangle could all be from the negative zone, and these beacons could be calling to Annihilus, or to the control rod that he carries. Now, we actually have a video coming out on Friday about Guardians of the Galaxy 3 and the Annihilation event that you will not want to miss. And we have another very special announcement on Friday that I can't wait to tell you guys about. And also, don't forget to check out Notion. It's a great comprehensive tool that helps you get organized, and it's very user-friendly. It can be as simple or as complicated as you want it to be, helping you to create websites, blogs, and workflow organization for you or for your team. Check out our link in the description. You won't regret it. Well, that's all the Easter eggs we found, but if you have any questions or comments, please let me know in the comments below, or you can @ me on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe, smash that bell for alerts. For Screen Crush, I'm Ryan Airy.